Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for IBTTA's Global Road Safety Week 2024. I'm Pat Jones. My guest today is Stacey Stewart, CEO of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. For more than 25 years, Stacey has served in purpose-driven roles, including President and CEO of the Fannie Mae Foundation, U.S. President and Executive Vice President for Community Impact Leadership and Learning at United Way Worldwide, and most recently as President and CEO of March of Dimes. Stacey, it's great to have the chance to speak with you.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Pat. Thank you so much.
Well, Stacey, let's start off. Tell us about MAD's mission and your role at MAD, and what makes you so passionate about this important cause.
MAD is such an amazing organization, and so many people know MAD. They know of the great work that MAD has done. We'll be celebrating about 45 years of our history next year, big anniversary celebration, and it's awfully nice to reflect on the history of MAD and all that's been accomplished. When this organization was started, it was started by, excuse me, a mom who lost her child in a devastating drunk driving crash. And really that spark of grief and anger really started a movement that has taken hold in every part of this country. And in many ways has led to a lot of work that has contributed to us cutting impaired driving fatalities since that time by 50%. Laws getting passed like a minimum drinking age of 21, or zero point zero 0.08 as our blood alcohol concentration level at a federal level, or stronger seatbelt laws. All of those things have contributed to great success. Today, we're facing new challenges, especially ones that were brought on by COVID and all the things that we've seen there. Other kinds of things that are on the horizon with respect to not only alcohol, but other substances that are leading to impairment. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, even though we've had a great history. And it certainly has been my pleasure to come into the organization after about 16 months and lead this organization and continue the great work that we've laid out for the past almost 45 years.
That's great. Stacey, many cities and some countries have adopted Vision Zero. And with that challenge, I was struck by the staggering statistics about drunk and drugged driving. Could
Mhm.
you share with us a little bit of information about how far-reaching these tragedies are?
Yes. So I think one of the things that I mentioned is, since the beginning of the early 80s, we've cut impaired driving deaths by 50%. And we had really reached a low at some point before COVID. COVID then really took a toll on things. And since between 2019 and 2022, we saw over 30% jump nationally in the numbers of fatalities due to impaired driving, both drunk and drug driving. And one of the things that we're concerned about is today, over 13,000 people, based on the latest statistics, die annually from impaired driving crashes. And it's really happening in all parts of the country, both urban and rural. I think there have been a lot of things that have contributed to us being able to continue to combat impaired driving, including things like rideshare and things that didn't exist in the 1980s. Those things are very helpful, but they're not sufficient to completely eliminate the issue that we see on the roads. And so one of the things that we're doing at MAD is really revisiting a lot of our work to try to figure out what are the ways that we can continue to work with law enforcement for sure, because law enforcement is on the front lines of finding aggressive speeding behavior, all the kinds of behaviors that potentially could lead to impaired driving crashes, but also think much more about prevention and how we can help educate a younger generation about the dangers of impaired driving. And then, of course, one of the biggest things we're working on is around the HALT Act, which was passed in late 2021, that really now creates a mandate for there to be impaired driving technology, passive technology that would disable the car even before someone is able to drive in it if they are impaired, in ways that maintain safety more than what we've ever been able to see in the past. The estimates show that this kind of technology, which does exist today, once it's installed in cars, can actually reduce the number of impaired driving fatalities by 10,000 annually compared to the 13,000 people that die annually. So it gets us as close to zero as we've ever been. And even though we'll still have more work to do, it is a huge, there's a huge amount of progress with that bill getting passed. And now that we're in the rulemaking, to get to full implementation is certainly our focus.
In addition to the HALT Act, you certainly are involved in communities, a lot of community activity to educate people about impaired driving. Tell us about some of the most significant actions and programs MAD has taken in the communities.
So one of the things that a lot of folks that participate in is our Walk Like Mad events. We have hundreds of these events all around the country every year. It's a chance for victims and survivors to come together, community members, to both raise money, but also come together as a community to recommit to the efforts to end impaired driving. Those have been incredibly important in communities. We also have a lot of events to honor law enforcement, those that have done a tremendous job at DUI arrests and catching drunk drivers and drug drivers on the roads. So we really appreciate the work we've done there. I think a lot of our work, obviously, through social media. We just launched a new program called Mad Sports, which is all about engaging athletes and teams and leagues to elevate their voice and invite them to share their commitment to ending impaired driving. A lot of athletes obviously are very concerned about the use of alcohol and other substances, and so they become great partners in helping to educate, especially younger people, but also just young adults on the dangers of impaired driving and the dangers, especially of underage drinking and drug use, which could lead to impaired driving down the road. We've launched a new initiative called the MAD Network for corporate partners and other organizations. Really, any entity can be a part of this movement of ending impaired driving. It doesn't just need to be companies or entities that are in the transportation space or the traffic safety space. It could be really anybody, because we all can play a role in ending impaired driving. So these are a lot of initiatives and efforts that we have going on, and many more that are intended to try to reach people in new and innovative ways.
I love the idea of Mad Sports because sports is such a strong element in our society, and you're really reaching and connecting people where they are. Isn't that
Yes.
right?
Yeah. I mean, you think about the number of people who go to sporting events, and we want everybody to have a good time when they go to the sporting event. We want them to enjoy themselves. We just want to make sure people get there safely and get home safely. That's the major point. And we don't want people going to concerts or sporting events and enjoying themselves a little too much and then getting on the roads and potentially putting themselves or others at risk. But then we also know that athletes, we've unfortunately heard the stories that are very painful about athletes who've also find themselves on the wrong side of the issue as well, and gotten involved in unfortunate crashes, sometimes leading to severe injuries and fatalities for others on the roads. And so we want to make sure that we're engaging a lot of folks. Obviously, athletes and sports is a huge part of society. So where we can show up to really, we have a great partnership with Anheuser-Busch and Uber around Decide to Ride, which is in partnership with the NFL, which is getting the message out at NFL games. We're moving into college games as well, potentially working with others as well to get that message out. Decide to Ride is a great message just to say, plan when you go to these events, plan to create a safe plan to both get to the event and get home. And that's what that partnership is about. So we're excited about our partners that come together and try to reinforce this message to keep everyone safe.
I love the expression decide to ride. It's not
Yeah.
only very succinct, but it's rhyming and it really will stick with people, right?
It does. It does. I was actually just at a concert myself on a Friday night and saw the Decide to Ride signs at the concert. It made me feel really good that, we're reaching people where they are with these messages. And at a moment where they really do need to decide to ride, they need to make a decision on how to get home and how to keep people safe. And a lot of people were having a good time on Friday. So my greatest hope was that, everyone could get home safely the way my daughter and I were able to. So.
And this is an area where technology is really playing an important role. Back in the old days when maybe you were out and you had a little too much to drink. All right, how do I get a car to come pick me up? Do I get a taxi or do I get a friend? And now with ride-hailing services, it's a
Yeah.
lot easier. You can make that decision at the moment. You don't have to plan so far ahead to decide
Yeah.
to ride.
Yes, and our great friends at Uber have shared a lot of information with us that demonstrates the value of rideshare, especially for folks who find themselves in that situation where they've gone out. They know they're going to be out drinking and having a great time, and they don't want to put themselves at risk. And for rideshare, where it's available in the communities where it's available, and it's available in a lot of communities, fortunately, it is the best option for people who want to make a safe choice. We also know that a lot of impaired driving crashes happen in rural areas where sometimes rideshare may not be as accessible. And so that's why we still have to educate people around that there are still dangers. If you're in places that are a little bit more distant and you have to rely on your car, it's just really important. Maybe, it goes back to the old days of the designated driver, right? Just being mindful of the fact that it is never safe to get behind a wheel if you've been drinking or using other substances, and it is really important to not only be mindful of your safety but the safety of others. And that's what, unfortunately, this past week we had our board in town, and we were with a lot of our MAD national ambassadors who've all experienced the devastation of a crash, someone that they've lost, who they loved. Maybe we've had MAD national ambassadors who are victims themselves and are still dealing years later with their lifelong changes from their injuries. When you hear these stories, you just think about what could happen if someone makes the wrong choice. And I think it's just important to remember that no one should have to live with the loss of a loved one or lifelong changes in their own lives because of a decision that someone made that could have been avoided. And we know that impaired driving is 100% preventable.
I'm glad you brought that up about thinking about the other person. Driving with empathy is a key component of IBTTA's Be Safe Together campaign. And we've been emphasizing the point that every decision you make behind the wheel affects the safety of everyone else on the road.
Yeah.
Stacey, tell us what role does empathy play in MAD's mission to prevent impaired driving?
One of the things that I think is really important about impaired driving is that it's a public health issue. And when you think about public health, it's how do we think about our own health, but how do we think about what we do, the kinds of behaviors, the kinds of decisions we made to not only keep ourselves safe, but others safe. Think about COVID, right? A lot of people had a lot of issues with some of the rules that we put in place to try to keep ourselves safe and others. But let's just be frank. These were common sense rules around wearing a mask when you're in public that were really helpful to keep others safe. The same is true with impaired driving. When you think about a lot of the issues that we can put in place, it is important to think about not just what works for us, but what needs to work for everyone else too. Our roads are for the public's use, not just our own use. We can't take a selfish approach to when I'm on a public road, my responsibility and everything we learn in driver's ed and everything is how do I keep myself safe, but how do I also keep others safe? That's what you learn when you get your driver's license. When my kids got their driver's license, they were learning about how do you drive in a safe way that protects everyone on the road. That is something that we all have to be mindful of. We cannot live this life in a selfish manner where we think about only ourselves or what matters to us or what's important. We have to be mindful that there are others who have families too. There are other people that have kids too, right? And when my daughter goes out or my daughters go out at night, I want to make sure that there's not somebody on the road who's made a selfish decision, not thinking about that my daughter or my neighbor's daughter or their kids are on the roads or their spouse or their significant other are also on the roads, and they need to get home to their families as well. I think the idea that we have to apply empathy, maybe in this world right now, we don't always care about that. You look at the news and it seems like people don't care much about empathy anymore, but I'm here to tell you that's one of the things that we should not sacrifice in society if we want to keep everyone safe. So yes.
I totally agree. And I'm glad you mentioned young people in driver's ed. When my three children got their driver's license, they had to appear in juvenile court in
Wow.
Alexandria, Virginia. And one of the things that happens is the judge gives a little talk to the kids and says, "I know this is an exciting time of your life, and you're looking forward to this new freedom, and your mom and dad are too. But that freedom comes with responsibility. And
That's
I
right.
have two words of advice for you: slow down and avoid distraction, because those are the things that
Yes.
get kids into accidents. And
Yes.
it's so important in our world. We're talking about changing behavior, and
Mm-hmm.
probably the best time to change the behavior is when people are young. So I'm
100%.
curious if you could elaborate on what's your pitch to young people to
Yeah.
who are just learning to drive. What's your
Yes.
pitch to them about impaired driving?
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of the uptick during COVID had a lot to do with the mental and emotional strain that everybody was experiencing during that
Mm,
time.
mm,
We saw a 30% increase, over 30% increase in fatalities. During that same period of time, there was less driving going on the roads.
mm.
So fewer people driving, but more fatalities. Just tells you the extent to which people's behavior at home, their use of alcohol and other substances as a coping mechanism potentially to deal with what was going on in COVID, which was a very stressful and difficult time, actually led to more people dying on the roads. And I think for a lot of young people who today experience a lot of stress and anxiety and depression and a lot of mental health challenges, we see mental health as a huge issue in this country, pre COVID and exacerbated by COVID and still continuing today. Our biggest message is that there are resources to help young people who may be on the verge of getting their driver's license, but they're also at that point in time in high school, which is kind of an awful time for most young people. I mean, it should be a really great time, but sometimes it's really not such a great time. You have a lot of social stresses, a lot of things around school, academic pressures, getting into college. Like, it's a lot, and I do think that we need to, at MAD, one of the things that we want to try to do is to make sure that young people understand, yes, at the end of the day, we don't want you to get behind a wheel to drive, but maybe MAD could also help people navigate to other resources outside of MAD that can be helpful to them so that they're making safe choices in their lives for their own health, right? How to avoid underage drinking and substance use. It's just an important thing to do that we see at MAD as contributing to potentially lessening the risk that someone is impaired on the roads. But it's just a smart thing to do. It's a smart thing that we are a part of the chorus of voices who are saying, look, if impaired driving is a public health issue, a part of public health is mental health. A part of public health is mental wellness, and that has to be incorporated in our work some way. We're not a mental health organization by any stretch, and we never will be. We don't have those resources, but we can be a part of a group of organizations and entities who are sharing that message around how integrated that issue is with what we're seeing with respect to impaired driving today.
Stacey, you used the phrase "a chorus of voices," and I love that because I'm a singer and musician and
Oh,
love to sing in choirs. And it's amazing. You take 30 or 40 or 50 ordinary voices, but you put them together in a choir, and you get a beautiful sound. And it
yeah,
really says this is so important that everybody needs to participate in, because we're
yeah,
going for that common that group sound.
yeah.
And I want to ask you. Uh, my members are owners and operators of toll roads, bridges, and tunnels all over the world. How can my members best support MAD in its mission to prevent impaired driving?
Right. And I think I would say, for MAD, how can we best support what you guys are doing? What you're saying in terms of the chorus is kind of the way I think about MAD. MAD has done a lot of great work over the years to lead on so many of these efforts, but we've never done this work alone. It's always been victims and survivors who joined us in this cause. It's been other organizations in traffic safety. It's been law enforcement. It's been local, state, and the federal government. It's been, just a plethora of entities and organizations that have always been a part of a movement and a coalition. And I think, the work that you all are doing to focus on road safety is super important. And we're proud to be joining your chorus of voices that are amplifying these issues. And we're excited about the partnership of you guys joining us in this work as well around ending impaired driving. We share, I think, a mutual desire and aspiration to keep our roads as safe as possible. Neither one of us, our organizations, can do this work alone. It reminds me of the phrase, if you want to go faster, go alone, but if you want to go farther, you go together. And I think the more that we join together, the more that we team together, the more that we'll get accomplished, the more voices that will be heard, and the more places will show up in with these messages that will hopefully trigger something in people's minds to make safe choices every time they get behind the wheel.
I love that. Safe choices every time they get behind the wheel. That's the ticket. That's the name of the game. Stacey, you've been involved in wonderful purpose-driven organizations your entire career. And I wonder if do you have a mission statement or a personal credo that has predisposed you in some way to this kind of work and this organization?
I've always said that my career has been marked by this idea of aligning my personal passions with my professional pursuits. A little bit of alliteration, but what it really, the one thing that I feel like my life and my career has always been marked by is this idea that the things that drive me personally, the values that I, hold as an individual, the things that I care about in society and community are the things I decide to spend my professional life doing, And I didn't have a family member who was in an impaired driving crash, but I had a sister who was who became a quadriplegic as a result of a drowsy driving crash in California back in 1980. This, ironically, the same year that MAD was founded. Wow. And even though MAD's was started around drunk driving, when I came to MAD, it occurred to me the irony of coming to lead an organization where I had an experience personally that was very, very related. I mean, you mentioned earlier, impaired driving can cover a lot of different impairment. For us at MAD, it's primarily focused on alcohol and other substances, but we're very much linked up with the folks that are dealing with drowsy driving, distracted driving. These are all things that we have to be mindful of to keep our roads safe. And I think for me, I feel like I can be most successful in an organization where I am aligning the work that we're doing with the things I really care deeply about. And this is an issue that's really important to me. So that would be my motto, I think.
Stacey, I think you've given some great advice for young people. I love your alliterative expression. You align your personal passion with your professional pursuit. If everybody did that, I think this would be a lot better world.
Yes, I agree.
So Stacey, we're just about out of time. Tell me, what are your final words of wisdom before we sign off today?
Well, I think, first of all, thank you for inviting us to be a part of this, and congratulations on all your efforts around focusing on road safety. It's super important, and you guys are doing a great job of providing amazing leadership, and we're excited to partner with you, both nationally and then locally, and we hope that partnership can really blossom. I would just leave people with the idea that building public awareness is very important. I mean, you could argue that a lot of what MAD has done over the period of 45 years has been building public awareness, building better education, building a more aware society so that we can drive real outcomes that save lives. And I think all of what we're doing even today and the number of people that will see this conversation, hopefully it will be meaningful to them, that they will take it back into their work lives, their personal lives, talk to their friends, their family, their colleagues, with just a reminder about being safe. I think about the number of people who go out with their friends. I've talked to so many people who say, I was out with some friends the other night and I saw my friend have a little bit too much to drink and, I worried about them getting home. Well, maybe there's something we should do more than just worrying about them getting home. Maybe we should take a little bit more active participation in ensuring that they get home. Little things like that can make a big difference in the world when we decide to take an interest and to care about the safety of others as well as ourselves. And that I would just say that's what we're doing here, is coming together as a concerned group of organizations who ultimately have a higher goal of doing well by others. And I think that's a very important message to leave everyone with, hopefully.
Stacey, I love that thought. The little things matter, and one of our expressions is the little things add up. It really, safety
Yeah,
is not one big thing; it's a lot of little things, and
that's
you
right.
put those little things together, and you really save lives.
Yes.
Stacey, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you
We
so
really
much.
appreciate it. We look forward to being big supporters of MAD, and to all our viewers, thanks for watching, and be safe together.
Thank you.
Thank you.